Today on Free Field Training, we are talking about police training equipment. Oh yeah, police training equipment. We're also going to talk about doing scenarios with brand new police officers, especially those who are just straight out of the academy, to give them the best possible jump on being good at solving problems on their own on the street. I'm going to talk about all of my favorite equipment to use with those new police officers and how we implement them in a way that makes scenarios more realistic, more repeatable, and easy to document, so that when people are doing well, we can document that we're doing well, and when they're doing poorly at something, we can document what they're doing poorly at and be able to rewatch those scenarios, game plan them with them, so that the next time that they go out and they have that situation or something substantially similar, they can do better at it. I'm also live streaming this over on Instagram, so if you like seeing all of this cool stuff and you want to be part of the conversation next time, follow me over on Instagram, Tommy_FreeFieldTraining, to be part of the conversation in the future. If you're watching me live on Instagram, please leave me some comments and questions about the stuff that we're looking at here. I know you don't have the best view from that angle on Instagram, but I would love to hear from you guys so you have something to discuss at the end. Maybe make multiple videos or a large video montage out of this. So to start with, I try to keep all of this gear together so that way I have it when we're going to be doing scenarios. I keep it in a big red cinch bag. The big red cinch bag I got for free somewhere. I don't even remember. Probably at a trade show somewhere I got this big red cinch bag, but it's waterproof. It cinches at the top. It makes it really easy to keep all of this stuff where it needs to be and keep it from getting destroyed or lost, so that way I can have it when I need for the next person. The big problem with a lot of this is keeping it charged, like all police equipment, but I keep most of it pretty up to date, so we're good to go on being able to use it when we're off on the road with people and trying to do scenarios either out on the street or in a controlled environment like in the training center or at the basement of the station. So to start off, I've got a lot of blue things here, and these are all items that are purposefully marked blue for safety purposes and so that they're easier to find, so people can see that, for instance, this blue knife is not a real knife, but it's substantially similar looking when you leave it on a table or someone has it in their hand, that it gets that same response out of people where they're going to recognize during the scenario that that's a knife. This is an old knife that I have. I took the tape off of it that we normally put on it. But the old knife I have, the silver is coming off of it. Back when it was shiny silver, it made more sense for this purpose. It's just a rubber knife, same as this thing. It's rubber. It can't actually hurt anybody. And for that purpose, when we're going to use it in a scenario, we wrap it in some blue painter's tape. It's easy to take on, easy to take off. We can throw that on there, and then that's a really cheap way into having a rubber knife instead of paying for a specific one for your purpose. You can wrap a rubber knife in blue painter's tape. I really like that solution. But I got two of these for different things. This one's a little easier, a little thinner, easier to like fit into a sock for somebody to try to pat down. It is thick enough where you're gonna, if you pat somebody with this, you're gonna feel it, and not so thick where it's like difficult to hide like an old rubber knife is. I like to have a couple of different blue gun Glock handguns. Nothing in this video is going to be something that's an actual live firearm. These are all non-guns. This is just a hard piece of blue polymer, but it fits into all of the holsters that people might have. So a Glock 17 with TLR1 light fits in most of the retention holsters that people have for most handguns, especially brand new people. And then I've got this one that has a Veridian Fact Duty, which is another thing that comes in handy. Sometimes we have people that we're working on higher level scenarios with them. We want to be able to see what it is they're pointing at from the gun's eye view. This is a camera mounted to, again, just a hard piece of green polymer. It's not a real gun. You can charge this up and it will record anytime this comes out of a specialized holster. That takes a little more work. It's not something we use for every scenario, but it can be helpful for some things. Also, I can take this off and have just a normal Glock 17 size pistol in case somebody isn't using a weapon light and has a holster that isn't designed for a weapon light coming out of the academy. That's less common today, but it's still an important capability to have. Neither of these are super expensive. You're talking 50, 60 bucks. This one came free when I was doing a review on one of the Veridian products. Another thing that we have is blue tourniquets, so we easily differentiate between our live on the street tourniquets and the ones that we're using for training. Blue tourniquets are great for that purpose. And then I have two really old radios, both programmed for the department's primary band, but then more importantly, our secondary band and directive our secondary band. So the reason I have these two radios here is that I can have one that I can use as the dispatcher on our secondary band on direct, so I can talk back and forth with the rookies and we can have them put on their secondary band, and then I can have another radio that's on our primary band. And what I do is we'll take the primary band and leave it on a table on as high as humanly possible, and I tell them, you can't get on the radio when someone else is on the radio. So we're not just doing a domestic training, but we're trying to be as realistic as possible with their ability to get on the air. So if somebody else is talking, they can't talk to me. It's like running two dispatches, but we don't interfere with everybody else because we're doing the scenario on a completely separate band, if that makes sense. I have found that it's more stressful for the trainees, but it's more realistic, and so they don't get as stressed when they're out on the street dealing with it in real life. We have blue training handcuffs. These things are great. We'll get a good solid view of those. The way these things work is the handcuffs apply like normal Smith & Wesson or Peerless handcuffs, but it allows us to get more reps in faster because they have a quick release on them. So instead of a key lock and a double locking mechanism, we just pull on this and the handcuff opens back up. So when we're using these, we have people simulate double locking the handcuffs. In fact, there's a little thing on here that reminds you, hey, make sure you double lock those handcuffs. But we have them simulate double locking the handcuffs. It makes it a lot easier to get it on and off. And sometimes if you have a role player that might have, weaker wrists, or they're older, or they just don't want to get so beat up by young cops putting handcuffs on them the whole time, being able to take these on and off is great. Also for handcuff-specific training, learning a new technique. If we're going to teach people a gooseneck and we're going to do it new, they can do a lot more reps of it with these, work on the application, but that's mostly for people that already have the double locking, undouble locking thing down with their cuffs. These are great. They're a little hard to get. There's a website on here. Let's see if we can get that. There's a website on here for them. They have like minimum order numbers and stuff like that, but if you can get a hold of these, a set of these are really great for doing handcuffing training. I keep a screwdriver around for the same purpose, because if this is sitting on a table, what I want is for the rookie in the scenario to be able to grab it and go throw it somewhere, and to recognize, hey, the screwdriver on the table, that might be a problem for me with the guys all irate. Like, it's all about making them think in scenarios and giving them the same impetus on the street, the same input on the street that they might have, the same input in the scenario that they might have on the street, and having them react to that without having to like recognize what the problem is from some like oddball thing that we have, like simulating a screwdriver. The only thing with this is you got to make sure the role players know the screwdriver is not to actually be used against the new guy as a weapon, right? But we want to have things like this laying around. Sometimes we'll leave hockey sticks or baseball bats sitting around a scenario area, so that if the rookie sees them, they're like, oh, we're going to take this, let's take this baseball bat and throw it over here in the other room where people aren't at, where we're not discussing with this angry person. That keeping them thinking in ways that is going to get their attention and where they're going to be able to use that on the street to become more safe. Last but not least, actually not last, but definitely not least, is UTM setups. This is an awesome like simunition type of thing. Again, non-gun stuff. This is a magazine and UTM rounds. It's like adult paintball. So if you're doing room clearing training or something like that, these are huge with SWAT teams. You can switch out this bolt into any duty rifle and this magazine in any duty rifle, and it operates like a big paintball gun, which is really awesome stuff. These things make a little splatter mark, and it allows the referees, and the trainers to see it and go, oh, that's definitely a hit, or no, that's definitely not a hit. It makes a little colored splatter, and it doesn't leave so much splatter. Here, you can see the payload of this little UTM round. It doesn't leave enough splatter because it's so small. That's the little colored piece way inside there. I don't know if you can even see that in there. It's probably like 1 or 2 grams inside of there. It leaves just enough to see, but not enough where it destroys your carrier, and it washes off pretty easily. It's a water-based like paint system. And the safety mechanism of this is such that you can't even use this magazine for live ammo. Like live rounds won't even fit inside. These are purposefully made short and of different dimensions so that it won't work that way. So it increases our safety substantially when we're doing scenario training that might involve a rifle or even a pistol. They make UTMs for pistols as well, where we can't have an accidental shooting of one officer by another because somebody like marked it as safe, or we double checked that it's safe. No, when we do them with this, it's 100% it's safe. In fact, what we'll do is you can put the bolts in rifles and the firing pin doesn't even line up with the center. So even if you were to put this bolt into a duty rifle and load live ammo into it, it still wouldn't fire the live ammo. There's multiple redundant safety mechanisms built into it so that we don't have those types of problems. So if we check guns and make sure they're empty before we do the scenario, and then we load these bolts in, it then becomes essentially a non-gun. And we can see just by that blue that you can see through the chamber, the ejection port, that this can't possibly fire even if we load live ammo into it. So in order to have an accident, someone would have to not unload their gun properly, plus not put the bolt in, plus then somehow load live ammo in, and if they're using this magazine, which is bright blue, they can't see it, it's a lot of peace of mind for the guy that's going to get guns pointed at them to check to see if where people are at in the scenario and whether they're doing their thing right. These are worth their weight in gold. Finally, last but not least, I have a ripped up t-shirt, because oftentimes I'm the role player. We need somebody to be the role player, and you want them to look like, like trailer trash that's calling about a domestic at 3 a.m. where they just had a fight. And this is a good type of thing where you can simulate the reality, them seeing this, the new rookies seeing the types of things that they're going to see and having to pick up on it. Oftentimes they ask, are you injured? But they won't think about, if the person's clothes are all ripped up, asking them like, are you injured? No, I'm not injured, I'm not injured. Okay, well, how did your shirt get ripped? Because that's another sign that we had some violence involved. So we do those types of things, simulating broken glass on the ground, that type of stuff, which gets people thinking. It's the whole like screwdriver or baseball bat or something sitting on the table. Get them thinking about the things that they're going to see in real life and how that affects the scenario, their safety, and the criminal prosecution, and what our civil and criminal liabilities are when we're out on the road. So that's the equipment that we use for training scenarios. One thing to note that's come up recently is we can use body cameras to actually record the training scenarios and then have that video saved essentially forever at the police department, and also use it for further training. So I can set my body camera up in one corner, the rookies can have their body cameras on, we can have another FTO's or another trainer's body camera set up on another corner, we go get spare body camera and set them up on another corner, we can turn those on to start recording, start the scenario. The rookies come in, they have to use their body cameras the way they would on the street, and now we've got 4 different angles of what happened. And then we can record at the beginning of the scenario, hey, this is what the scenario is, this is what we're hoping that they do. And they come in, we've got video from their perspective of doing it, and then we can go back and we review one or all of those body cameras, hoping to get better perspective on them and what their thought process is, and then debrief it with them so that they can see things they did well, things they did poorly, and we can make suggestions on how to do things better. And then we can rerun those same scenarios, and it's a scalable thing where we can scale scenarios up and make them more difficult in a controlled way instead of saying, oh, just go at it. And also we can compare one person's performance with another. We can set a scenario and say, okay, the level 4 domestic is what we're going to need in order for someone to pass stage 3. To pass stage 3 onto stage 4, our shadow phase, you need to pass level 3 domestic. And then we can have 3 different levels of level 3 domestic, so the scenario changes slightly each time, but it's meeting the same criteria each time, if that makes sense. So that's all the equipment that I use and some of the methodology that we use when we're doing scenarios for new rookie officers who are straight out of the academy and are going out on a patrol, and then moving up into things that are a little more advanced for people that have been on the job a little longer. Things like handcuffs to learn new techniques, UTMs to make sure that when we're doing, rapid response active shooter training, things like that, people are safer, things that make people think a little more, things that make people understand how it's going to work in real life a little bit more, things that make us safer and give them the muscle memory that they need using, say, the retention devices on their hoods and things like that, things that give us new perspectives in how they're seeing it and what they're actually pointing at, and again, things that are safe for us to go find on pat-downs. These come into play there too. And then, of course, our med, where we're not going to accidentally use our go-on-the-street medical devices for our training and end up messing them up and then not having them when we're on the street. And hopefully all of that keeps us a lot safer when we're doing scenarios, because again, our goal is to get as realistic as possible and still be safe. So we're doing it realistically, but we're not causing injuries. So I'm going to take the Instagram live stream comments and questions. Thank you all for watching the YouTube video. I'm going to click on over to them, see if they have anything interesting to say about this entire topic. Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. And while you're here, why don't you check out some of these other goofy videos that I've made? Or you could subscribe or maybe go over to Patreon and see how you get your name put on the videos like these fine folks over here. All the links are, of course, down in the description. We'll see you guys next time.